my name is Michał, and I want to talk to you about some of the quirks of development tool building in Dart. And what I mean by that is basically any day-to-day tools that you're gonna use, created by you or made by someone else, and yeah, that's basically it. So if you're hoping for some case study about production grade CLI tools, it's not gonna be about that. So sorry to disappoint you, but still I think you're gonna find something interesting here. Alright, so as software engineers, we obviously love to automate things, and I remember a few years back often being held back by people just saying that, oh, maybe it's not worth to do that now, you're gonna spend so much time on it and you're just gonna use it once. But nowadays, with AI, it's pretty much the opposite way. I'm often encouraged to build something just to make it tiny bit faster, and with AI it's often a pleasure just to help me some prompt and see some progress, and often the quality doesn't need to be so great because still it's just for your own use, right? Yeah, so what I want you to take out from this presentation, and what I hope you're gonna live with, is just some inspiration maybe, or some of the basic knowledge of how to write those automation tools effectively in Dart. And by tools I mean from simple ones like structuring your test files or managing translation keys into your app, into running some generations, maybe running some APIs, even stuff like automatically creating your App Store applications or setting some settings there. This is something we use at work quite a lot because we have around 100 white label apps which we release every 2 weeks. So that's a big of a challenge, every second week to do so, but it works there. So why Dart? Other than the fact that we all love this language, because simply some would say you could use Bash or maybe even Python, JavaScript, but I think they all have some disadvantage compared to Dart, and the obvious one is that we are not using it all the time, with which Dart we do. And if you've ever written a script in Bash, which was more complicated than just calling some commands in a row, and came back to it after a couple of months, not sure if you understood any of the loops there or what the code was really doing. So yeah, and basically I find similar issues with Python and JavaScript, although they have really nice ecosystem of packages like Dominic already mentioned. But yeah, let's just not make the presentation about it and focus on Dart instead. And Dart is really great because it can compile just in time or ahead of time. And practically it means that either you can compile your script as it is and run it straight away, or compile it ahead of time to be then starting very fast and run quick. It is also truly multi-platform, and I don't mean only that it runs on macOS, Windows or Linux, but also you can build desktop applications in it, you can build web applications in it, and also backend servers, with some of the limitations obviously, but I think for our own use it's gonna be more than enough. For example, we have a tool in web for our internal use that we are just using there to manage those 100 apps. We've been also experimenting a bit with desktop applications for stuff like managing our AI agents and stuff. So with AI it's really easy to do. Also you have all those nice developer features like sound and safety and the syntax, right? But also the ecosystem of packages is not that shy. You can find very much a lot of things like you're gonna need, like maybe some Slack notifications, integrations, or all those stuff already on pub.dev, ready to use. And it's not that bad. Okay, so for this presentation, I'm gonna focus on some key manager tool to build with all of the available tools in Dart. And I chose this specifically because probably most of the apps already use them, already use some system to manage the translations. And you can do that pretty quickly with Dart too. Yeah. And this is just a simple counter app that is translated. You can change the language to Polish. There is not really much to it. And some things you would want to do when working on the lab is just download the translations from some third party or maybe internal tooling, like from some sort of a server, to then generate the Dart code that will have the translations in it. And you can use various tools, but for these presentations I just use Localize, not because I'm sponsored by them or anything, but they have a CLI, they also have an API, but really this presentation will be really agnostic out of it, but it's just fine to use something that is actually used by quite a few people. Okay, and this is how it looks like. I know you probably can see a lot, but there are basically 5 keys which are translated to Polish. And if you look closely, you can see that they are not really in the format that Dart supports. So it's if we just download the keys straight away in JSON, because Localize doesn't support ARB downloading, at least not that I know of. We're gonna need to do some processing to that, and if we have scripts, it's not a problem to do so. Yeah, so basically all we need to start is to have Dart installed with what I hope we all have with Flutter. And we can just create .dart file with some main function. Yeah, this function just needs to exit with 0 or some error if there is one, just like regular bash tools exit. And we can call the CLI out of Localize if we have it installed, which will be just running process that run on it with some of the code. It's not really that important what it is there, but it also requires us taking the token out of the localized platform. So it's really a good practice to put this out of source control because we don't want those tokens to be leaked into the code. So we can do that pretty easily with Dart. And there are a few ways you can do that, either with the define flag or through the exporting the key to your shell environments. And this code just takes the precedence of the defined value, and if it's not there, it just uses the environment variable. Yeah, we can obviously then, after calling that tool, react to the exit code out of it, and also return an exit. And like I mentioned before, we're gonna need to convert those downloaded JSON files into ARB files, so we can help us a bit with AI and just generate some method that will do it for us, right? And pretty much the script is done at this point. I guess it works. But it wouldn't be fun if it would end at this, right? So what we achieved so far is just the code that works. It has 0 dependencies other than Dart. We can create it anywhere and just run it through Dart run. But we can do a bit better here. I'm sure you know we can. So at the moment those script looks like a bit bland. It's kind of like one color, just like this black and white salad. And it would be nice to make it a bit more colorful, to just add some colors to it. And we can do that with various packages, but there is an official one from Dart. Or we can just use ANSI codes directly to not use any dependencies also, but it's just easier to add some of the official tools. Yeah, and the package is called CLI util, which just provides some basic utilities for building CLI tools, CLI apps. And after adding it to our dependencies, we can just use some of the code to add the logger. And also we can do cool stuff like defining the progress and then finishing it, showing the timer. We can also change the color of the text to be red, for example, for arrows, or to be green, sorry. Or to be green, like that. And yeah, this I think already looks a bit better. But also, since we've added pub.spec, we can add those scripts to the bin folder and then to executables. And after we do that, we can easily activate that package in our source code to then be added to the global path and then just call the tool from anywhere in our terminal. So that's really handy. Yeah, and this works well for simple stuff, right? But as our tools or needs grow, or the constraints change, we might need something better. And I'm sure you know how to do networking in Dart. And what if there wasn't an official CLI from localize? Then we need to do the request ourselves, right? And for that, we can either just write this code for ourselves or generate an API out of some specification. And it's often the case that those APIs include some open API spec, which then we can use to generate that. There are a couple of tools out there, I think, but I found we're using this and it's sort of works. Not the best. It has some quirks, like it's mentioned in the README file, to basically fix your specification if it doesn't generate, or to delete the code and put it to the ignore, prevent them from overriding. And I find out that this is pretty simple to do with LLMs as well, to just give them some error context and then they can work on that. And with Dart scripts, we can just write that simple scripts that will just download the specification from the server and then apply some specific fixes, like this one, this generated code. I guess one of or any of or all of unions don't really work well with that generation and had to be fixed to be then instead a string type. We can also tree shake this some other method that created for me, because I didn't want to have all that code generating the whole API when I'm just gonna use 2 endpoints from it. So this will just make sure that there is only like a couple of methods that I actually need. And then it can just generate the client. Also same as before, just calling the process that run and reacting to some error, showing the progress, blah blah, all the cool stuff. Yeah. A quick demo of how that can work. Yeah, and coming back, we generated that API as a separate package, and then we can plug that into our main one for the CLI tool, and actually also have AI come to the rescue here and help us with creating some of the methods, and then change that tool calling to just use the API instead, and that just works same as before. So sort of surprise works better. Also, another cool package from dev team is the args one. It just helps us parsing some arguments out of the command line, and we can just define some flags, like probably if you've used some of them already, like help or verbose, and they're pretty much supported well with Dart. And what is also cool is that maybe I take that first. So here with help, it just prints out the usage, which will be generated out of that argument definition that we previously had on the previous slide. So the parser can have, we can print out its usage, so we don't need to print it out manually ourselves or define some scripts. And yeah, with verbose, it just adds, changes the logger to not be a standard one, and uses the verbose logging to show that progress on each step. Yeah, this is just some other things that parser also supports, like adding separators or options. With just a quick demonstration. But it's not only about downloading the keys from somewhere with our day-to-day work, but also actively adding them when we are working on some features. So we'd probably need to add also support for adding the keys, right? And we can do that pretty easily, but I wanna show you how we can use that package, the args package, to actually use command runner instead, to do it in a more structured way. So it just allows us to define some commands, which are just some classes, where I'll show you in a second, and then run the runner and react on the errors there, also on the usage exceptions to print out the usage. And also we can, similarly to before, add some flags. We don't actually need to add the help one because it's defined by default, but we can add the verbose one. And here is how some basic command looks like. It is overriding for name, description, and actually the run method. It's no different than I showed you before. So probably pretty simple, all with that code. Yeah, same with add command, although we can define some other parameters or options. So for add command, we have the translation key name, we have the actual translation, and optionally we can add the language or platform or any other arguments that we are going to actually use or need. Okay, so we can parse them out of the arg results and cast them into the correct types, and use the methods to which just calls some API endpoint there. Yeah, again, to the rescue, won't bore you with that one. Yeah, and that's how actually you can use that. You can define the minus key and minus t for the key name and translation. And yeah. So this was a bit like basic stuff, but there is actually a cool package that you can use to do that even more effectively. If you want to, or if you don't want to, you can just stick to plain Dart. But the package is called DPRI. It was not created by Dart team this time, but it was created by the. I'm not sure if he was the creator or someone else, but it's used with pub.dev, which is like a private pub.dev. So you don't need. So if you are hosting any packages, you can use this one instead into an IE. And it has some nice shortcuts or utility functions to basically build some CLI tools. And I want to show you some of them. Like for example, the case when the user won't set the API token. So instead of just scaling the script at the beginning, we could ask him to provide that if he wants to, obviously. So we can just use the confirm method from the package, which already has handling for that yes and no yes and no selection. And then if the user decides to, we can ask him for the token and also specify if this value should be hidden or not. It has also support for like the coloring, a bit different to CLI logging, but it's still there. It has some utility methods to work on the files, to maybe find some files, and this works similarly to the Dart built-in packages, the methods, but there are some cool stuff you can do. For example, with find, you can define like iteration on each result as it goes, so you don't need to get the whole list at the beginning and then process it after it gets it. If you have other files, you can actually just start away first time when it finds some file that matches the specification, or you can just use some extensions to run streams instead of putting the process that run. It also has some shebang support, which is just the hashtag exclamation mark sign you can put at the beginning of Dart file to then call it directly from the command line instead of putting the Dart run. Just remember to add permission for the execution of it. But if you decided you would want to have the script be really fast and to compile it beforehand, you could use the DCI compile method to compile the script into an executable, and then it will be just quicker to start the script. Yeah, and it also can install it directly into a path when compiling. Yeah, a bit cherry on the top is, as you probably noticed, a lot of this presentation been talking about AI and working with the AI, and turns out with Dart, it's also pretty easy to build MCPs. And before we do that, I actually want to speak about when to use MCPs and for what use cases they might be useful to you and to your team. And one of which is just restricting some permissions for the methods you're calling. So, for example, with this translations CLI, we could pretty easily just give permission for the agent to have access to the whole terminal and let it call the CLI to add translation keys as you're working on some kind of feature. But the localized API doesn't really support restricting permissions for that key. So the agent, if it decided to just use that key to maybe delete some of the translations, it could technically do that. And I've seen AI hallucinate many times in my code already. So definitely that would be some of the good use case. Also, there is a bit of talk about MCPs putting too much context into your LLM, and actually, like some simple requests because of that can take a lot of tokens. For example, yesterday I think we just disabled Dart MCP by default in our repo because we found out that it takes around like 8,000 tokens when it's sitting idle in the context, and some people just didn't like that. So one of the solutions would be to just create some wrapper around these MCP tools and actually disable the tools you're not using, or if your agent supposed doing that in the IDE or in the UI, you can just use that. Right? Or just some wrappers around some API or internal tools, and this can be helpful if you want to have the agent let you explore those tools quicker. There are actually two ways of how you can do that with Dart. One is through community maintained project, which is MCP Dart, and the other one is with the official one, which is just the other way around, Dart MCP. Really confusing, I know. But I think the community plugin is a bit more suited for just day-to-day work, and it supports like the last year's specification for model context protocol, and they are actively working on bringing this year's specification to life. And when we have already some sort of tools like that, it's pretty simple to just plug the package in, and all we need to do is just convert the outputs of those methods to be outputted in the MCP format. So just creating a server, defining like the server capabilities, and connecting to it instead of just returning a value, and registering some tools, which are just like same as before, just some description or an input schema and a callback to it. There's this schema, pretty similar to the args that we had before, just in the MCP format, and the callback is just taking the arguments and then returning the either error, or throwing an error, or returning the code result, which is just some text content in this case. And then after we're done with that, we can just plug it into our agent. This is an example from OpenCode, because this is one we are using. And some things to remember is to also provide the environment token to the MCP. this way because those tools can have their bash very restricted and not have access to your actual tokens or exported environment variables, which is good. And yeah, this is the demo. Yeah, here after giving it some prompts, it just figures out to call the MCP and add the key, and then it can download the translations for us. And yeah, that's basically it. If you would like to check out the code on how everything was done here, you can look through it from the QR code, which just redirects you to the repo. I made some branches to make it simple for review. So yeah, if you have any questions, then I'm here.